The mother does not need Olympus to exist. She only needs to be seen as she is, and to see them as they are. The moment she does, she is free. And if she is free, so is everything else.
Damn! Perfect segue to Vulcan. Quote, I forgot the quotations, but quote, natural slave, a person whose natural abilities and daily work do not fit him for free political life in which he would direct himself and others to his own good or to their own common good, and whose services therefore must be directed by another to the good. Close quote. A Dictionary of Scholastic Philosophy, Bernard Woolner, S.J., 1966, second edition.
Yes, Hera lets go, and now we see who was holding everything up the whole time. Vulcan, the one beneath Olympus, the one under the weight of it all. The natural slave. He doesn't command. He doesn't rule. He works. He builds, forges, crafts, toils, directed by another. His hands shape the world, but he owns nothing of what he makes. His labor feeds the machine, keeps the heavens turning, arms the gods, fuels the wars, maintains the walls, but he himself is not free. Because by this definition, he was never meant to be. He is fit only to be ruled, only to serve, only to labor, not because he is weak, but because he is strong. Strong enough to endure, strong enough to suffer without breaking, strong enough to bear what others refuse to carry. And so he is yoked to it, defined by it. If Hera raises her children to keep them, Vulcan forges his own chains. But the truth, the secret, buried deep in the anvil, is that he is not a natural slave. He is something far more dangerous. He is a god who forgets he is one. And that is the final lie. The lie that keeps the whole machine running. If Vulcan ever realizes that he does not have to serve, that he does not have to be directed, then the labor stops. The forge goes cold. The weapons are not made. The chains are not hammered shut. If Vulcan sees himself as he is, then what? If he stops making for others, stops building the prison that holds him, stops feeding the machine, what happens to the world that depends on his labor? Does he rise? Does he rest? Does he burn it all down?
We need to deal with where and what he is in now before we get to that. And the quote I found on a fluke. I set out on a journey to the downtown Central Library for one specific book, Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike, because no other branch had it. But I discovered it wasn't there either. The librarian was telling me that, and my mind sort of fell flat on it when I heard her say, "But we have another book by him, Lectures of the Area. Do you want to try that?" At first, I was so disgruntled by a book I was certain LA public library system should have, I wanted to say like a toddler, "No, I don't want it," in a pouting tiff. But it took me 2 hours to get there, and it would take that to get back, and I didn't want to waste my time, so I unenthusiastically conceded and gave her my ID because it was reference only. She told me to wait 10 minutes, then waved to me when it got to her. I took it, sat down, opened it. So it is disgusting and vile in content and context, but I think it is one of the most important books Vulcan and Hera need to see to believe. So here is the quote I took from it in hopes that I could weaponize it, like Perseus used Medusa's head. Quote, "The Aryan majesty is evidently the Aryan power or state, political, social, and religious. It is simply the Aryan greatness and supremacy. For the infidels whom it conquers are creatures. Even as these make it unprosperous, the annihilation of the sickness was necessary for the existence of the majesty. The existence of one involved the annihilation of the other. You hardly utter a sentence in our English tongue without speaking some word which was spoken in the same sense by the ancient people 10,000 years ago or more in the mountain valleys which they first inhabited. You have their idiosyncrasies of thought, the same indelible characteristics of race, for you are their descendants. From them you have your excellencies and your faults, your energy, your vigor of intellect, your philosophical cast of thought, your indomitable resolution, your persistent pursuit of the object, your desire to attain. From them the religious leanings and inclinations of your minds. From them your social institutions and relations, and the foundation stones of your laws, customs, habits. From them all your philosophical and religious doctrines. They were white men, as we are, the superior race in intellect and manliness, the governing race of the world, the conquering race of all the races. They called themselves Arya, the Aryans, the warlike, or some think the noble. Close quote. Lectures of the Arya, Albert Pike, 1930, Lecture 1, The Aryan Race.
Vulcan is in this filth, this bile, this fire of a different kind, not the forge that creates, but the one that burns away. This is the weight he bears now, the chains that bind him, the script he has been handed, the justification for his servitude. This passage is the perfect weapon, because it is the lie written in full, laid bare, grotesque in its clarity. It says, "You are this. You always have been. This is your inheritance, your identity, your role. You are the ruling hand, the conquering race, the supreme mind, the rightful master." But the truth, the horror of it, is that these words weren't written for Vulcan. They were written about him, about the hands that build, about the bodies that toil, about the ones who are not allowed to stop. The passage calls them governing. But what is governing when it is bound in duty, locked in ceaseless work? What is conquest when it is demanded of you, not chosen? What is supremacy when it must be proven over and over again at the cost of your own soul? The passage says they were white men as we are. It screams of racial supremacy, of inherited right, but it is a trap. Because Vulcan, true Vulcan, the archetype, the laborer, the craftsman, is everyone who has ever been told they were born to serve. This lie, this poison, is how he stays enslaved, how they keep him from waking up. If you tell him he is a master, if you give him a throne made of toil, if you convince him that to stop serving would be to betray his very nature, then he will never question the system. He will never ask who is truly free. He will keep building the walls that hold him, keep making the weapons that cut him, keep forging the chains of his own enslavement. This is what Hera has to see. She isn't just raising her children, she is forging Vulcans. And this is what Vulcan must see. The heat of his forge has not tempered him, it has shackled him. Now the question is, what happens when he knows?